Good morning. You're listening to the BLAINESWORLD Show, heard each Wednesday here on WPVM 103.7 in Asheville, North Carolina. I'm your host, Blaine Greenfield, and each week we focus on both the Asheville theater scene as well as on positive news and information about people and organizations in both Western North Carolina and throughout the country. And to that end, it's my pleasure to introduce both Jodi Ford and Ashley Lung, and they are with the Sunrise Community for Recovery and Wellness. And welcome aboard, folks. You can wave to all your fans and friends in Facebook world. Okay, so if anybody's watching, they can see you. And I should mention that Jodi is a graduate of Savannah College of Art and Design, has lived in Asheville for close to 30 years. So you came here, what, when you were 3 years old, was it? Or 2? It's just, she's been in Asheville for a while. She's been involved in nonprofit marketing, communications, and fundraising for the last 12 years, joining Sunrise Community for Recovery and Wellness in January 2022. She is passionate about the impact that peer support specialists have in our community and is excited to share information on the work at Sunshine. Ashley has been a certified peer support specialist since 2019 and just recently became a community health worker. She's born and raised in Asheville. Boy, one of the few people actually born and raised in Asheville.
Yeah.
Lived most of your life in Asheville?
My whole life, yeah.
Okay, wow. You don't meet too many folks like that. She was born, raised here, and she lived here ever since she was born. She has worked for Sunrise Community for Recovery and Wellness since April of 2021. She's an individual in long-term recovery. What she values most about peer support is that people can choose freely to participate. The voluntary nature of what they do makes it easier to build trust and connections. So the first question I have, I guess, to both of you, I'll take it Ashley first, is that when you were a kid growing up in Asheville, right? Did you always know you wanted to be in this field?
No.
As a kid, what did you want to be?
As a kid, I actually wanted to be a veterinary. I just loved animals. I don't know. I just always wanted to be a vet.
And so what got you into this whole field?
As I mentioned, I'm a person in long-term recovery. So I'm in recovery from substance use disorder. And, my parents battled with addiction and I battled with addiction my whole life. And once I found the road to recovery and I changed my life, I wanted to help other folks do the same. So that's what peer support's about. We are people with lived experience, so we can offer our experience, strength, and hope to other individuals who are struggling and show them that there is a different and better way to live.
Very cool. How long have you been in recovery?
3.5 years.
Very good. So that's quite a story. And Jodi, I'll ask you the same question. So as a kid, you grew up where?
South Carolina.
Okay.
So just down the mountain.
The same thing too. In South Carolina, were you interested in being in the recovery industry?
No, I didn't really know much about the recovery industry until I was a board member of Sunrise Community and Recovery and Wellness before I became a staff member. And I became a board member because I actually, a friend of mine told me about peer support and what that is. And I just loved it. I loved it as a model. I love it as a way of kind of breaking through a lot of barriers. So then I arranged to have a meeting with Sue Polston, who's the executive director, and asked at the end of that meeting if I could join the board, and she said yes. And then 3 years later, there was an opportunity for me to join staff, and so that's what I did.
And talk a little bit about the two things then you both mentioned. So first of all, for the benefit of the folks who don't know what Sunshine Community for Recovery and Wellness is, what is it?
Sunrise.
Sunrise, I'm sorry. Yeah, what is it?
I'm sorry, go ahead and say.
What, for the benefit of folks who don't know what Sunrise is, what is it?
Well, we are a nonprofit. We're located here in Asheville, actually in the United Way building at 50 South French Broad, and throughout the area. We're a nonprofit that is completely staffed by peer support specialists, meaning people who have that lived experience in recovery with substance use and mental health disorders. And that means everyone from our executive director down through all of our interns, our volunteers, our staff, and even 60% of our board is made up of people in recovery, and the remaining 40% are made up of people who are allies of people in recovery.
That's pretty
So,
cool.
yeah, so we are the first, and as of now, the only 100% peer-run organization or nonprofit in Western North Carolina.
And talk about then, you mentioning that you're peer run or peer supported. What does that mean exactly?
Peer run means that like she had just said, everyone who is employed here is a peer support specialist. And so we have lived experience in one way or another with either mental health, substance use, homelessness, or all three of them wrapped into one. And even if someone does not directly identify as someone in recovery, maybe they know someone who is. So maybe their mom struggles with addiction, or maybe their child struggles with addiction. So being a peer-run organization, it helps us to be able to connect and to have that bond and relationship with the people that we're able to serve.
Now, when you got involved, Ashley, in the organization, so you came, did they go through the program, or did they help you in terms of your recovery?
I am not one who actually, we have what we call a peer university here, where folks can come in and go through like an internship process, volunteer process here. I did not do that, but and I can just speak for one staff member. She was a participant in our Linkage to Care program, and Linkage to Care is a reentry program. So one of our staff members was a participant in that program, and now she is the coordinator for that program. So she came in right out of prison. Sunrise was able to help her get back on her feet. They gave her peer support. They helped her with all the resources, education, employment, and now 3 years into her recovery, she is the coordinator of that same program that helped her.
Very exciting. Talk about, you mentioned the program, and either Ashley, you or Jodi, talk about then, it seems like there are a bunch of programs within the organization, and we're talking primarily about the peer support program. Is that correct? Today. But talk about some of the other programs though as well.
Well, we'll just kind of tag team on going back and forth. And I did just want to clarify that every single program that we have at Sunrise is a peer support program.
Gotcha.
Because the person, if you are we don't call people clients, we don't call them patients, we call them peers or participants. Every single participant that is connected to one of our programs is going to be in connection with someone who has that lived experience with what the participant is currently in. So Ashley mentioned Linkage to Care. So that's a reentry program. That's for people that have recently been released from either jail or prison here in Buncombe County. And so what we want to do, we know it's important that when you get out of that situation, you need a lot of assistance. Otherwise, you may end up finding yourself with the only choices being the ones that led you into incarceration into the first place. So we're here to offer alternatives, and that can be that recovery housing, getting people with their IDs hooked up, getting a phone, just having that one-on-one peer support of someone that understands what you've been through. And the list goes on. It's really tailor-made to fit the needs of that person coming out of incarceration.
Talk about how yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to go to another program, but go ahead.
No, go ahead to the other program.
Okay. We have Sunrise has a respite house, which is a house that holds 3 individuals. And what that means, respite, where they can come and just rest. So if someone's coming out, it's more focused on mental health. So if someone's maybe coming out of the hospital, if someone's coming out of a mental health facility, and they maybe need like a little stopping point before they go on to their next journey, they can come and stay at the respite house for up to 7 days, and that's absolutely free. They can come in, have their own room, have a shower, just be able to cook dinner, eat, and also get that one-on-one peer support, because we always have someone staff there and they can just connect with that individual, and they can just come and just have somewhere to sleep and to feel safe for 7 days.
Talk about folks who go through the program. How successful is it? In other words, do you have any statistics or figures in terms of people who've gone through the program and how they come out afterward?
The reentry program in particular, any of the programs?
Take anyone, but say the reentry one, and then we'll talk about the other programs in general.
Well, I'm sorry, I don't really have. I could find out how many. I mean, hundreds of people go through the program within the year. As far as like any kind of recidivism data that we could provide about that particular program, I don't have that information.
Yeah.
But we know for a fact, it is evidence-based, that somebody who comes out of incarceration, a returning citizen, if they are met with a support system that is based on, I don't know, like healthier choices, then their chances of recidivism are greatly lowered. Yeah.
Well, I think you guys mentioned also something else that's very exciting, that you have people who've gone through the program and they actually come back as volunteers, or people who become peer support folks as well. So that's probably very exciting when they've gone through the program and then turn the tide, I guess, so to speak, and then come back to volunteer. And that must be, quite an experience even for the person themselves. Even I guess, Ashley, using your experiences, you probably had that same kind of reaction that you're into recovery, and then all of a sudden it must be very exciting to be helping other people.
It's absolutely, that's why I do what I do. Just to be able to, I'm not, as someone in recovery, I'm not sitting here talking to a participant, just talking at them and trying to tell them what to do. I'm sharing my experience, strength, and hope with them as someone who has been through it. And a lot of the stuff that they're going through, I've been through. So I can give them my outlook and like what I did to better myself, just to see if that might work for them. And sometimes that's what matters, is just someone sharing their experience with you. And I'm not talking at them or talking down to them, but like, hey, I went through this same thing and this is what I did. So maybe you could try this. And it seems to go a lot farther than telling someone what to do.
And especially, as you said, telling somebody what to do who've never been through the experience. It's hard for me to relate, but people who've been through it, it's quite a different experience. Talk also about another program you folks offer that offers, help with child support. That's something else that you're new into, or it's a new program. What's that all about?
Yeah, so it's a brand new program. It started in February. Sunrise has partnered with the Buncombe County Sheriff's Office and the Buncombe County Child Support Agency to provide peer support and support services for non-custodial parents who have a child support case. And what that means is we help folks, we help the non-custodial parents. So they could be behind on payments. We help with payments. If they're possibly in jail and they need a purge paid so they can get out of jail, we can help with that. We have funding for recovery housing, transportation, anything that qualifies as something to help them and better themselves. We can help get telephones, pay for phone service, just stuff to kind of get them back on the right track. And a lot of folks one of the questions people may ask are why we're so focused on the non-custodial parent and the parent who does not have the children, because by helping the non-custodial parent, we help the parent and we help the child. Because if you have a non-custodial parent who's sitting in jail and they don't have the money to get out, they can't work to get their child support paid. So if we're able to help them pay that purge to get them out of jail, then we're able to get them on the track to getting employment. And then when they get employment, they get a paycheck. And then when they get a paycheck, their monthly payment can be paid to their child and to that child's mother. So I think it's huge that we're giving that support to that non-custodial parent, because at the end, it helps everyone.
What's exciting to listen to you is the fact that when you think about it, there are so many problems that somebody in recovery has to face, and if it's just one thing, that'd be easy maybe to solve. But there are all these issues. You mentioned the financial issues and the job issues and all these other related issues. And it's tough, I guess, to find somebody. It's almost like what I hear you saying, Ashley and Jodi. It's almost like you're kind of a one-stop shopping program for people in recovery to help them get out of, not just for the moment, but for the rest of their lives. I guess that's the goal.
Yeah. I like how you said that, one-stop shop, because I kind of feel that way about Sunrise. Like, we offer so many different programs for so many different people, and you don't have to be a non-custodial parent to get support from Sunrise. You do from that one program. But we also have a recovery community center that we're sitting in right now, and it's located at 50 South French Broad, and it's open Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. And it's for people in the community who they could be in the houseless community, they could be in the recovery community, and they may need a recovery meeting, or they may need one-on-one peer support. They may need somewhere just to fill out a job application or put in a resume, and they can come here. Our doors are open 9 to 5, coffee, fellowship, and they could just come and talk to a peer support specialist and just get some basic human connection. And that's huge for people, just to feel loved and cared about, and they could just get some compassion from our peer supports here. And this is a good place to learn about all the different programs that we have to offer, because you can ask any staff here and they can give you a rundown of every program that we offer and see if somebody maybe qualifies for it.
And even as you're mentioning them, I'm almost kind of overwhelmed by the fact that there's so many programs and so many areas of help.
We haven't even listed them all yet.
But one of the problems, and I think you guys are hitting at it, which is very helpful, is that they're almost overwhelming for somebody who doesn't know the system. But I guess what you folks do, Jodi and Ashley, is you're helping them find out about the system and how to work their way within the system, as opposed to fighting it, I guess, all the time. The program you just talked about for non-custodial parents is new. Do you have any, you mentioned that you haven't any accomplishments out of it so far, or even though it just started, any success stories or anything you care to share?
Well, it is new. We do have 10 participants in the program since February. A couple of those we were able to get out of incarceration. One thing I could say that's good is they have not been back to jail since we were able to get them out. Out of those 10, our peer support specialist that works that program, who is Lionel Hightower, he was able to connect 2 with recovery housing. They're still stable in that recovery housing. He was able to connect 2 others with employment. They're still, working stable in that employment. And one of our first participants, he was able to help her navigate the system, because, as you said, a lot of folks don't know how to do that. And she was able to get visitation back with her daughter. So it's new. It's very new. So we're still getting numbers. 10 is one of our lowest number programs, but it's really coming along. And just the folks that I see interacting with that program, like, I already see a bigger and brighter things ahead for them. So,
as you said, Ashley, a lot of folks don't realize about, like, they don't think about it in terms of non-custodial. Everybody thinks about the parents, the custodial parents, but there are all these other folks. So I think it's really exciting you got this off the ground. Talk a little bit about how this whole Sunrise organization, how are you folks funded?
We have a diversity of funding streams. We have a lot of, we have amazing partnerships. And like Ashley had mentioned, with Buncombe County Detention Center, with the Sheriff's Office, with Department of Health and Human Services. So what we contract, we have contracts with Buncombe County and with Asheville City to provide a lot of these, we provide the staff, and we provide that expertise, and we provide a lot of that infrastructure, but the funding actually will come through the state and sometimes through federal sources. We, like any nonprofit, we apply for grants. We're very fortunate to have the support of a lot of really amazing local foundations, the Dogwood Foundation, the Community Foundation, just to name a few. And then finally, we do get individual financial support. So we do accept donations from the community.
And talk a little bit about then the process of accepting donations or people finding out more information about the organization. What would be the best bet?
Well, the best bet is to go to our website, and there is a donate button on the main page, and then also in the top right hand corner. That's right now it's through PayPal, so it is very secure. And then or if you want to write a check, then if you click on that donate button, it'll also give you a mailing address that you can send donation to. And then if you want to give me a call, then I would love to be able to just talk to you and tell you about Sunrise and even arrange for a visit.
And if you would, though, give the website, if you would, please.
So it's thank you. It's Sunrise in Asheville. So it's www.sunriseinasheville.org.
Okay. And talk a little bit about what you just said so that people can contact you for information. Do you work with volunteers, or do you look to have volunteers?
We don't. I'll be completely honest with you. So one of the other programs that we have is called Peer University, and it's basically, like the name implies, it's an education arm for people who are interested in becoming peer support specialists. That is sort of our channel for creating more peer support specialists, which we personally believe that you can just not have too many in your community. But how that pertains to the volunteers is that part of that process, once somebody graduates from Peer University, which is a 9-week program, then they are brought in to be a volunteer so they can get that hands-on experience. So really, I'll be honest, the type of volunteer opportunities that we have are so peer related that those are mainly the types of volunteers that we currently have placements for. So it's not like we need volunteers to come and like make food boxes or work in a clothing closet, some of those more traditional volunteer placements. Ours is very specific to peer and recovery community.
Do people contact you with respect to being in recovery or have gone through recovery that they want to volunteer with you or become involved as peer counselors or peer folks?
That's a really great question. They don't contact me directly, and as far as I know, I imagine we do get those. And so what we would do, if anybody called and wanted to do that, we would ask them to go through our Peer University. Even if they, so if they have already gotten their peer support certification, then that Peer University is additional support and additional training and additional education, so it doesn't hurt.
And so to use Ashley's experience, if you will, so how do you get involved then with becoming a peer support person? How do you get involved?
I just, once I realized it was something that I wanted to do, I took a peer support specialist class through Via Health. And Kevin Mahoney here, that started Sunrise 6 years ago, he also does a peer support class. So there's a bunch of classes all over the region. Mine was lucky because it was during the COVID, so I got to do mine online, so it was a little bit more convenient. I did mine over Zoom, but it's really, you go to the peer support website, you print off an application, you get 2 reference letters. You have to be someone with 9 months of continued sustained recovery in one form or another, and you mail in that application, and then you can see if you get accepted into the class. Once you're accepted into the class, it's a 40 hours of peer support training, and then you have to have 20 additional hours of continuing education credits, which could be CPR class. We have a wonderful recovery coach academy here, things like that. And you get those 20 extra hours, and mail everything in. And once everything is approved, you'll get your certificate back and you are a peer support specialist.
And I did want to just add that the certification process is through the UNC, University of North Carolina's social work program.
Yeah.
It is it's a legit certification process. So it's not just, somebody, you're not sitting around in a circle and talking about your own recovery experience. You are getting very specific training on how to be a peer support specialist.
And I do want to speak on Sunrise this nonprofit organization in general, on hiring peer support specialists. We are a living wage certified employer, which means like, you're not just coming in here working for pennies. They understand that, that the world is hard right now. And so they pay a living wage to where you can come in here and you can do what you love for a price that you can live your life. So I think that's huge for an organization to be, especially a nonprofit organization, to be living wage certified. And this organization is.
Even for you, I imagine it was very exciting when you became certified. I mean, that's quite a process.
Yeah.
To, all of a sudden become certified. And how long have you been with them?
I've been with Sunrise since April of last year. I am actually almost at my year, but I became a peer support specialist in 2019.
Okay, very exciting. And just to wrap up again, if I can have Jodi mention, if folks want to get more information about anything we've talked about or some of the programs through the organization, best bet is to do what?
I mean, it's the website. So it's www.sunriseinasheville.org. Or you can call our community center, which is 828-552-3858. We're open Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. Yeah.
And you're located are you located at the United Way building?
Yeah. We're at 50 South French Broad in downtown Asheville. We're in Suite 246.
Okay. Well, anyway, I'd like to thank you both for being my guests this first half hour on the BLAINESWORLD show. And hopefully we may even bump into each other sometime in person. Thanks, guys. That was great.
That would be wonderful. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks very much. And as Ashley and Jodi work their way out of the studio, I'll bring in our next guests in a second. And I think there they are. They're ready for us. And before I introduce them, let me just mention to listeners that they're listening to WPVM. And our mission is to foster community through programming that cultivates dialogue to inform and entertain. The station provides a medium for artists, businesses, community leaders, and nonprofits to share their voice on live radio. Listeners are invited to help support WPVM's efforts by making a tax-deductible contribution. They can do so by going to the website, WPVMFM.org, and looking at the donate option on the upper right-hand side. My second guests are two friends of mine, Ellen Pappas and Susan Mengel. And before we introduce you guys, let me just have you wave to all your fans and friends in Facebook world. So if they're watching that, Susan and Ellen. And they are both the Autumn Players at Asheville Community Theater, a very exciting organization. Ellen Pappas is a well-known local theater director, playwright, actor, singer, set designer, and member of the Autumn Players. She has appeared on stage at Hendersonville Theater, ACT, NC Stage, Attic Salt, and most recently as a narrator and they're in the Autumn Players production of Inspector Calls. Susan is an actor, singer, and member of the Autumn Players. She recently took the role of Sybil Burling on TAP's production of Inspector Calls. And let me ask both of you, because I've spoken to Ellen before, but not Susan, is that in terms of before you became involved in the Autumn Players, as a kid, Susan, you grew up where? Susan?
I grew up in Missouri.
Okay. And when you were growing up as a little girl in Missouri, did you always know you wanted to be in theater?
Not at all. But I loved but I loved having my dolls perform, so I would give them things to do. And later on, in junior high, I got to be part of the drama club, which was something I'd never heard of before. And I really liked it. The smell of grease paint is quite intoxicating. And I was the third grasshopper from the left. So I got to have green grease paint, which was really exciting. And really didn't do anything with it after that. I read aloud to my children all the years until they left home. Until they left home, I read to them every night. And I really enjoyed playing all the parts that I was reading in the stories. And so when I was introduced to Reader's Theater, or went to a Reader Theater performance, I should say, I was just knocked out. I thought, this is awesome. This is like the radio dramas of old
Right.
that I heard about, where you get to see the performers putting the play on, but really it relies on that actor having the voice, or giving the timbre, or the fear, or the joy that you would expect from any good play performance.
Well, Susan, I want you to keep something in mind with what you just said. And Ellen's heard this idea before, but nobody's done it yet, Ellen. But I really want to do this fundraiser, I've told you, either for Autumn Players or for some other local theater, where everybody does, Susan, their very first show. You know, so you could get to recreate the grasshopper again. Can you imagine? No, tell me that wouldn't be a fun thing to do, you know? Especially because I could be wrong. Do we have a video of you as the grasshopper?
No, there is no video that exists of me as the grasshopper.
But you mentioned for the kids or whatnot. Wouldn't that be a fun thing to do? You know that.
Yes, it would.
Okay,
You're right. You're
so,
right. They
Ellen,
would. They would
you've
love
heard
to
me
see that.
Say the idea before, but I'll ask you, Ellen, the same thing too. So I knew you grew up in the New York area, right?
New York City. New
Okay,
York City.
same thing too. Now, were you? I forgot. Were you a performer as a kid?
Yeah, I started really young in elementary school. My first role was Yum Yum in the Mikado.
Okay.
Because I love to sing,
Ooh.
and that was, and I got to wear beautiful like kimono, and walk around on those little shoes. It was wonderful, and I knew that
how old were you?
Probably about 8.
Okay. Do you
About
still remember?
8.
Do you still remember the
Oh,
part?
perfect.
3 little maids from school are we.
Okay, great. So at 8. So then move forward from 8. You kept it.
Well,
active.
I went through school. I was always in the drama club, always. I grew up in a family with 5 brothers, and I needed an outlet. Trust me. And, drama, music was really my main outlet, more so than the acting. I just loved music. I had a guitar when I was 12. I mean, that's just the thing I liked. And so I did it all through school. Until when I left school, I studied professionally, and I did some professional work. So.
Well, what's cool also about your background, you were actually, when you were younger, you were in a rock band also?
Yeah, I had a schizophrenic life. During the day, I worked in a law firm in my proper suits and my heels, and my hair was just so, and the jewelry was just so. And at night, I sang in a rock and roll band in New York, and
Oh,
up
yeah.
and down right. That's it. Up and down the East Coast, and mostly the performances were on weekends, thank goodness, because I could recover on Sunday night, so I could get back to work in the law firm on Monday.
What was the name of the band?
Cheyenne.
Okay, how long were you
Strange name for a New York band, but it was Cheyenne.
How long were you in the band?
About 5 years. It was
Oh.
myself and I have 5 brothers, so you tell me what's Freudian about this. Myself and 5 musicians, male musicians.
So fast forward then from Ellen's story, also Susan's, so that I got at least from Susan that you were always interested in theater, but you didn't do anything until a bunch of years ago then. You attended an Autumn Players production, which is really cool, and that got you hooked into being in theater with the Autumn Players? Yeah, Susan, when you saw the production?
It did. It got me hooked into it. Also, there was an Ollie class presented by Kermit Brown for Reader's Theater. And boy, if anybody can inspire, it's Mr. Brown, as usual. And it was so much fun. And he was my introduction to the Autumn Players, because he said, listen, you guys like this. You need to come join our group, check us out, see what we're doing, participate in the, the things we have to offer. And like-minded people that you've never met before, but they may be friends before the end of the meeting. So it's a real community. That's what I found when I went.
And talk about, Susan, if you would, for the benefit of the people who don't know what Autumn Players are. What is it? What's the organization?
The Autumn Players is under the auspices of the Asheville Community Theater, which is our patron. They have given us room and space and a platform. And what they are people that are still, well, it's open to any age, but mostly it is people my age and a little younger and a little older who are just interested in the theater and want to pick it up again and play with it. Maybe they don't want to memorize the whole script and devote themselves to 3 months of rehearsal because they want to travel. They want to do other things. These are interesting and lively people. But they want to pursue this craft that they've loved all their life. And it may be through poetry reading, which we have an outreach group that goes out and does poetry reading in different facilities. We have a children's program which goes out and performs for, at this point, I'd say kindergarten through 3rd grade. We have people that get together and we read a play for pleasure, read the whole play. We, Ellen, I'm forgetting something, but because of the graciousness of the Asheville Community Theater, they put out publicity, they put out the times for the audition. The AshevilleTheater.org site has all the listings for the information in terms of audition. It has the listings for the meeting dates of the Autumn Players. We meet a very comfortable every other month. So even that is not a load on the system because frankly, we got things we want to do, and going to lots of meetings isn't one of them. But these are fun meetings. These are fun meetings because we talk about what's available in terms of going and doing poetry reading in the community. We talk about, there's a committee that picks out the plays that we perform each year. So that's another group that there are just so many different ways to connect. And maybe it isn't that you particularly want to be on stage, but you love plays and you love to be with people that love plays. I'm sorry, Ellen, go for it, because you're so good at these things.
I just wanted to mention, because Susan came in.
I'm sorry, I took over Blaine's job there.
No, that's great.
And you did it very well. Sorry, Blaine. She did. Susan mentioned the age groups, and it really is, people older than us, people younger than us. But one of the things that is really intriguing is almost every member has had some tie to the theater. So we have former directors, producers, set designers, costume people, lighting people, scenery builders, playwrights, dramaturges. Almost every single person who's come in has some connection to the theater. Now that sometimes it's just that they were an audience member, but they love the theater. And it's really interesting because some of the people, as Susan said, you become friends. And when you become friends and people go, oh, well, I worked on this show in Chicago. Oh, well, I was in that show in Chicago. Oh, well, I remember working with this particular director on this particular production. And all of a sudden you sit there and you go, there's a lot of really talented people involved in this group. Really talented. Right, Susan?
And Susan,
oh my gosh, the talent is extraordinary.
If I can just give a shout out, especially to Ellen, in that you mentioned that ACT is a big supporter of you and back you up, but we should mention that Ellen also does a lot of the work too, because in terms of, I'm blown away, Ellen, by the fact of the publicity you're doing for this group and sending out the notices, and Ellen's getting the word out, doing a great job on Facebook and all over about auditions and all that other kind of stuff, because if you weren't doing it, somebody has to do it. So thank you for coming to do that.
22 years of my own business, which has been online for 22 years, long before people were doing things online. My memory may be going, I may be getting older, but I am technically savvy.
Well, also,
know how to do these things.
Well, the great thing, Susan, to have Ellen on board as well too, is Ellen is like the conduit or the contact for just about everybody in local theater. So one of the things that's really blown me away by the Autumn Player productions I've seen is the wide variety, Ellen, of talent you have there. In other words, we have a lot of people who have always had an interest in theater, but you also have several people who have been professional actors and directors, and not only Kermit, but I've seen several shows where you've seen all the people, that you see on local theater. They're in, oftentimes many of them are in the Autumn Players, and it's really exciting to see that just the talent and quality level of productions. And talk a little bit, Ellen, in particular. I remember one show, the name is escaping me, but that what you did, I think you directed it, and somehow you make it come alive, which is always very exciting for me. Rather than, Susan, just seeing a play with a bunch of people reading a script, that might be the case, but not if Ellen's directing it, And talk a little bit about, what was the one, Ellen brings in
Einstein,
Right.
Einstein and the Polar Bear.
Boy, I love that.
And I will say that I'm very grateful to the Autumn Players. The Autumn Players has a typical, what we call a classical reading is music stands. You don't learn the script. You stand up, you read your lines. When you're in the scene, you're standing up. When you're not in the scene, you're sitting down. And the Autumn Players has, opened their doors to different interpretations, to directors choosing to kind of change things up a little bit, tweak things a little bit. And I know on that particular production, I absolutely had movement. I had props. I had some staging, moderate staging, moderate. But what I really liked is, again, as you just said, Blaine, when you put out the notice for an audition, you never know who's coming. And we had I had a great cast. I had some everyday Autumn Players people. I had people who were doing things all over town, all over the area, who came in and said, can we do this? Can we be in this? And I was very excited about it. And the Autumn Players just gave me, who said, go ahead, go run with it, do it, whatever way you want.
A fun part about that play too, I remember it well, was also there were even costumes, and I wasn't used to having people in costumes, Susan, but Ellen is just so much a fun show. I think I've told you, it kind of got me over maybe a barrier I had about not enjoying readings, because it wasn't, as you said, a staged reading. It felt like the show itself, and it was exciting about it too, in that I didn't know the show, so I also commend Susan, you folks, in that you bring sometimes shows that people don't see elsewhere, and they don't, I've never seen.
Thank you, yes.
And that's, talk about the process, and Susan, how are the plays chosen?
Well, Ellen may be a little bit more familiar with this, but we have a group of very talented people. And again, some of their backgrounds, they've taught theater or theater as literature. And so they're part of the selection group. I think there's maybe 8 people on it. Does that sound about right, Ellen?
I think that they run between 5 and 8 people depending upon the year, but it's a group, like Susan said.
And so how many plays do you do in a year typically?
5.
Okay.
5. It was 4 at one point, now it's 5.
Okay. Your experience, I think, Ellen, is an interesting one. That in terms of becoming a director, if somebody wants to actually direct a play, how does that take place?
Just like there's a play selection committee, like Susan said, there's a director selection committee, and they will put out their choices and say, these are the plays that we've chosen for next season. And we want to speak to people who would like to direct them. And they, you go through an application process. They want to know what your background is, what your experience is. They also like to have you be mentored by an autumn play director at least once, so you know the system, because it's different than a fully staged production. It's very different. And then they try and match you up. Who would be the best for this particular play? This is a drama. This one's a comedy. This one's a slice of life. This one is, could almost be a musical. And they try and match the directors up with the particular play, and ask you, how do you want to produce it? How do you want it done?
And one of the things, Ellen, that's impressed me specifically with you is the fact that I guess I knew you initially as a performer, and always enjoyed watching you on stage. But lately, over the last several years, you've moved into some directing kind of positions. And so the question is, do you have a preference now as to being a performer or director?
Well, being the director, you're in charge of everything. So that's a good thing.
And also, wait, in a typical play, you don't have to memorize lines,
Well, yeah, that's the one thing. I know in the last production we were in, Susan was playing Sybil Burling. She was wonderful. Yay, Susan. She was wonderful. But they had a little intro. The narrator came in and did a little speech in the beginning, and that was me. And I had a lot of people go, how did you remember that? And they don't understand that I still do that. I still go into full productions as an actor, which means I have to learn 200 lines, 100 lines, whatever. So I really like that, but I prefer, and I say it again jokingly, but when you grow up in a family with all boys, you're not in charge of anything. When you're raising children, you're not in charge of anything. Right, Susan?
That's right.
Not in charge of anything. You're the director. You are in charge. You are in charge. You can say to people, that's what I want. And they actually do it. It's great.
Well, let's talk about then kind of an upcoming production that by the time folks will see this show, you'll have just completed auditions for it. And let's talk about the two parts of the process. So even in terms of auditioning, Susan, what does that entail? In other words, you see an audition notice. Do a lot of people come out for the auditions, and what does that entail?
I couldn't speak to how many people come out to the auditions, but I feel like they're well responded to. They will happen between the hours of 10:30 and 2:30. So it's a daytime audition. It will be on, it will have been
Tuesday
on May 3rd, so the day before. The auditions are announced on the Asheville Community Theater website, and they're open to anyone, and they will usually list, they will always list the characters that are involved. They're a little thumbnail profile of them if you're not familiar with the play. There will be sides, which is a reference to some pages that the director has selected from the script for each of those characters. So when you arrive, they will take your name, your pertinent information, your bio, and in this case, they will still be asking you for proof of COVID, that you've gotten your vaccination. But the point is, they will hand you a side. You will sign the sign-in sheet. You have some time to look at the sides. You should have looked at them beforehand if you really want to do this well. But if you've got the boldness to do it, you can go in there and read it cold. You will be called in one at a time. There will be a director sitting in front of you, as well as her assistant director, and maybe some other people to read against, so that you're reacting to the characters or, having the dialogue with them. And the director will make her assessment or his assessment. And you will hear back from them.
Talk about the process too, and then I'll get Ellen's reaction as well. But in terms of auditions, you've gone for a bunch of auditions. Have you gotten all the plays you auditioned for?
No, not at all. Not at all. I mean, somebody gave me some great advice once, and that was, it may be that just
We lost it a little bit. You froze a little bit on us.
Director was they didn't mean that you did it poorly or that you wouldn't be good. You know, they went with somebody else they thought would work better in the mix. She even jokingly added, who knows, the director may have promised the part to his girlfriend. You know, it's just any number of reasons.
Well, one of the things I love about Ellen, you and I have talked about this, is that I assume in the case of the Autumn Players, you don't do pre-casting. Is that correct?
No, nobody does pre-casting. You may invite people to come and audition who you know, as a director, you always have a bandwidth in mind. You're looking for this. And if you think certain actors might fit in that bandwidth, you can invite them and say, please come to the audition, you know. And the good news is, again, as Susan said, there's, you know, you get a lot of people show up to the auditions, which means the director really has some choices to work with and can say, well, I'm going to adjust my bandwidth to this or to this, and try and find the people who fit in there. And there's, you know, for every actor, for every singer, for every dancer, I'm not a dancer, but for every dancer, there's always a time when you go in and you know you gave a great audition, but you're not fitting in that bandwidth that the director is thinking of. He's thinking of certain people and certain characters in a certain way. I know I do. I think of a certain, how do they relate to each other? And someone may come in and knock my socks off, and I'm like, but they're not fitting with what I'm seeing the characters do with each other. And there might be somebody else who comes in and is a little shy, but that might be just what I want for that. So yeah, I've had times when I was not cast, and it's, you know, you go on to the next one.
Is that tough for you as a director, telling somebody they don't have the part?
It can be very hard to tell somebody they don't have the part, especially if it's someone who really did a good job or who just didn't fit. And they might be people that you know and that you really like and you really care about. And you might just have to say, in this particular instance, you know, no. I know that I'm very heartbroken when they don't let me have the part of the ingenue, the 25-year-old ingenue. Just
what's up?
Breaks my heart. Breaks my heart.
Well, it's also, as you mentioned off the air, when you your other alter ego is, when you're not Ellen Pappas, you're who else?
Sophia Loren.
Right, and you don't get those parts too. Must be very tough. For the benefit of folks watching, and I'll ask both of you this question, but describe then in terms of what should somebody do in terms of preparing for an audition. Go
ahead, Susan.
Or tell Susan, what do you typically do?
Oh, okay. I look to see I usually go and check out the script. First of all, I go check out the script. This is one of the things that you can do. You can go to, I should have mentioned it. You can go to the box office. You can check out a script for $10 for 1 week. They give you the $10 back when you bring back the script, you know, just covering the cost of the script. If you don't bring it back, you can read the script. I'd recommend reading the whole script. Then you understand the context of the tale that's being told. Then you go back and you say, ooh, I'd really like to be Sybil Burling. So you go and you read those things aloud. You walk around the house and you say them out loud, because as a friend said to me, it sounded so good in my head. But when you start actually mouthing the words, you realize, well, that should sound a little bit softer, or that didn't sound quite as empathetic as I wanted that character to sound at that moment. So you go back and you read that line again, And if it's your own paperwork later on, you make little notes like, slow down, louder, or whatever you need. And you show up bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and you show that you're not a complainer.
Well, let me ask you this question, Ellen. In terms of, if I can, if in terms of showing up, if a play Autumn Players is going to do has been a movie, sometimes there have been movie versions. Even the Einstein one, was there a movie version of that show?
I don't believe so, but I could be wrong, because when I'm directing, not when I'm acting, because Susan's saying preparation for an audition, when I'm directing, I try not to watch.
I was going to ask you.
To watch what someone else did. Because first of all, the movie is never going to be faithful to the script. There are a lot of things you can do on film that you will never be able to do on the stage. And so things will become more elaborate. The story might be a little bit deeper. The characters might have a little bit more depth to them, that you can do a lot more in film in a 30-second clip than you have to do in that 4 minutes to express that same thing on a stage. So I don't watch it. However, as an actor, what I will do, what Susan said, I will read through the script several times. Then I might go and watch a film version, just to see how other people interpreted the character.
Because I was curious, I think the last thing I saw you in was a while ago, was a funny thing happened on the way to the forum. And did you then see them, you had seen probably the movie like me years ago. Did you then see it afterward, after you were in the show?
After I was in the show, and the role of Domino was a hoot. It was a hoot.
It was.
And I just loved my big red wig out to here. It was a hoot. And of course, anything musical, I'll shoot for anything musical. I'll go out for it.
So it looked like you had a lot of fun with it. If folks want to get more information about Autumn Players, Susan, what's the best bet?
The best bet is to go to the Asheville Community Theater site, which is Asheville Theater.
No.
RE at the end, .org.
Right, Ellen has it.
Yes, I have RE at the end.
No,
you've got it up.
No, but I think it's right. It's Asheville Community Theater.
For you, lady.
It's Asheville.
This is for you. You're saying it. I'm showing it. Go.
Okay. But it was AshevilleCommunityTheater.org.
Yeah.
And so they'll have everything they need at that site?
Yep. It will show.
They will show
Autumn
you.
Players.
They have a link.
I think also
A link to Autumn Players.
I think
And
they also have a
also
Facebook.
under auditions.
Is there also a Facebook page? No, just
No.
okay. AshevilleCommunityTheater.org. Talk about then in the remaining time. So you'll have just completed auditions for the upcoming, or I guess next show. And Ellen, what's the next show coming up?
The next show is the Heiress, which was a wonderful, wonderful play. I think it was made as a movie with Olivia de Havilland, and it was called Washington Square.
Oh, that's right. Right, yeah.
But the play is very different than, of course, the movie version, and so the auditions are going to be, they're looking for specific characters, but it will be the Heiress, and it will be ready. Here we go. Need to see. It will be running on May 19th and 20th at the Asheville Community Theater, and the May 21st at UNCA Reuters Center, starting at 2:30. So if you want to see, you get in there early.
No, when they
What's
see
that?
it,
What's that, Susan? What's that?
No, it's a very unusual circumstances. We're going to be having a performance on Thursday the 19th, Friday the 20th, no performance on Saturday, and then Sunday the 22nd is at Reuters. It's at Reuters.
Yeah.
okay. And when they see it, Susan, at Asheville, is that going to be in the main theater or the went downstairs?
It's going to be on the main stage.
Oh, very nice. Okay, very exciting. So
Yep.
It
this
is very
one,
exciting.
so this one, if they want to see it, there'll be a lot of opportunities because there'll be a lot of seats. Sometimes if you're a small theater, you have to get there early. But this one, ACT, there should be enough seats for everybody. Okay, and let me thank.
Exactly, and there is a link on site for you to buy tickets
Okay, let me thank
ahead
Ben
of time.
both Susan Mengel and Ellen Pappas for being my guests the second half hour on the BLAINESWORLD show. Also to my guests the first half hour, Jodi Ford and Ashley Lung. And I'd also like to thank Cappy Tizzetti, my producer. I look forward to having you join me next Wednesday at 9 a.m. here on WPVM 103.7. And you can also listen online at WPVM and watch us on WPVM's Facebook page. So if you folks would just stay with me a second, I'm going to sign off now, and I'll speak to you soon. That was great. Thanks, guys.